The USL is launching a Division I men's professional league to directly compete with the MLS. As a current professional footballer in the USL Championship, upon hearing this, my reaction was very mixed. In the short term, I think it's good. I think this means more excitement, more fans, more money, more teams, more opportunities, more investors, and overall, more benefit for the players. But in the longer term, I can see this being a negative for US soccer. I think this could mean greater instability. I think it could mean more clubs folding. And I think it could be history repeating itself for a third time. First, let's talk about the positives of USL creating a Division I league. And again, keep in mind that I'm looking through this through the lens of a USL footballer. I want the USL to do well. I want more money. I want higher opportunities for myself and for my teammates. So I am going to be very, very biased with all of this. But I really am trying to look at this through a very realistic lens and realistic look at US professional soccer as a whole. So the first positive is that whenever there's something new being created, whether that's a new league, a new team, a new opportunity, whatever, it usually drives more excitement, more fans, more eyeballs to whatever that is. With more of these clubs and teams popping up, with more investors coming in, wanting a piece of the pie, with more stuff being created, that means there's more job opportunities for us as players. Whenever there's a surplus of jobs, that usually means that the contract negotiations, the leverage of that usually swings in favor of the players. I've been a pro now for 11 years, and I've seen this swinging of the leverage kind of go back and forth over the years. I've seen where the next season will have multiple clubs popping up. There's a greater number of clubs for that next season, and I've seen how players usually get to ask for more money because more teams are calling for them in the offseason. I've also seen the opposite. I've seen when the NASL folded and I was a player during that 2017 to 2018 season, and now there's more teams folding with a surplus of players, and I've seen how the opposite is true. The clubs are the ones that get to pick from a surplus of free agents and professional players. More players enter into free agency, more players are unable to find a contract for the following season, and more players have to take a cut in their salary in order to get a job for that following season. I could also see the MLS announcing that they're starting up a Division II league in between the MLS and MLS Next Pro to directly compete with the USL Championship. As a player, selfishly, that's good. More jobs, more opportunities is always a good thing for a player. I'm also an American, and I love the free market and competition. I think this will drive both leagues to become better versions of themselves. I think it pushes the standards of the leagues. I think it means that more money comes in. I think this competition is a good thing, but there's also a lot of negatives that come from that competition. The USL is also doing this at the perfect time. Soccer's popularity in America is at an all-time high. I walk around grocery stores and I see kids wearing Messi jerseys. I go to the park and most kids are playing soccer. I go to a youth game or a youth tournament and I see a lot of parents wearing Fulham kits or talking about the Real Madrid Champions League game the last weekend. I've never seen soccer this popular in America. And with the World Cup coming to North America in 2026, it's only going to increase in popularity. If there was ever a time to create a first division to compete with the MLS, it's right now, and I think that USL is really taking advantage of all of this happening. I also think that the USL over the last 15 years of operation has improved so much as a league, and clubs have improved so much as organizations, that they're really closing the gap between the USL Championship and the MLS. It's not closed, but it's closing. I think Louisville already meets the criteria for a Division I team. I know their stadium meets the minimum requirements. I'm not 100% sure about their ownership group, but they are pretty much there in terms of the minimum club at an MLS level. There's also a few clubs like Pittsburgh, Colorado Springs, Sacramento, Detroit that I think have the infrastructure pretty much there, and they would just need to do some smaller tweaks to their stadium or smaller tweaks to their infrastructure in order to meet all of those requirements for Division I. There is still a ton of work to do, but I think a lot of USL clubs are now getting to the point where they can kind of bridge the gap from that Division II level to the Division I level. The last positive that I see coming from this is that it's going to put some kind of pressure on the MLS. What that pressure looks like and the outcome of that pressure, I have no idea. It can go in so many different ways, but regardless, there is pressure now on the MLS. I don't know what the ultimate goal is. I don't know if that's a merger of some kind, which I think is unlikely. I don't know if it's a buyout of some kind. Again, I think that's unlikely. I don't know if that's more USL teams going to the MLS or if that's MLS creating Division II and more job opportunities. I don't know what specifically is going to happen, but this is a big move pushing against the MLS from the USL. And I say that because I don't see a world where the MLS and USL Division I occupy that first tier of professional soccer in America together cohesively for a long period of time. One is going to win. To be honest, from the outside and from the inside as well, MLS is a completely established league and it's gonna be very hard to compete. But whatever it is, there's gonna be some pressure and I think some benefit to come from this. There were the positives, but let's talk about the negatives now. Let's talk about the cons of this coming from a professional footballer. The first glaringly obvious negative I see from this is that US Soccer Federation's Pro League standards, or their PLS, is way too demanding for this to realistically work for USL clubs. As per the PLS, at least 75% of the league's teams must compete in a market of at least 1 million people in the metropolitan area. If we just look at the Western time zone, for example, we just narrow in on this zone. The markets with over 1 million persons are Los Angeles area, which already has LA Galaxy and LAFC. It's Phoenix area, which already has Phoenix Rising. It's San Francisco area, which already has Oakland Roots. It's San Diego area, which already has San Diego FC. It's Seattle area, which already has the Sounders. Portland area, which already has the Portland Timbers. Sacramento, which already has Sacramento Republic FC. Riverside, which doesn't have any, but it's close to LA and close to Orange County. Las Vegas, that already has Las Vegas Lights. And San Jose area, which already has San Jose. Just looking at this, I don't want to say the market's already captured, but you either already have a prominent MLS team there established or a really good USL Championship team already established there as well. So now the USL really has two options. You either go into these markets that the USL already has, like Las Vegas and Oakland and Sacramento, and you build on the infrastructure and you expand these to meet the Division I requirements, or you create a new team in a city or metropolitan area that already has an MLS team and directly compete with said MLS team. And to be honest, I think it's going to be really, really difficult to do either option. For example, to try to create a USL Division I team in Portland, Seattle, San Jose, San Diego, it's going to be very tough. I don't see why a casual fan there would choose to go to a USL Division I team over an MLS team, when the MLS team is probably going to have way more investors in there with way better players, way more money, better stadiums. Everything's probably going to be better at the beginning for these MLS teams and these MLS organizations than the USL Division I. And it doesn't matter if we say, hey, look, they're the same level. The fans really not going to care about that. They just want to go to the better environment, the bigger club. They want to go and see that. They don't care if on paper these teams are both at the same level on the pyramid. And that is why San Diego Loyal folded. That's why St. Louis FC folded. That's why Austin Bold folded. They were in these great markets, in these great cities with great organizations. I was part of St. Louis FC for a year. And then when that MLS team came in and they got the bid, the expansion bid for the MLS, these USL teams folded because they knew they probably weren't going to be able to compete with the MLS market setting up there. Of course, they give a whole bunch of reasons for it, but to be honest, in my opinion, they fold because they don't want to compete with the MLS and they know they're going to lose a lot of fans, a lot of casual fans from their team to the MLS team. So now if we go back to the other option and we just build up the current USL teams that have already captured a market like Sacramento, Las Vegas, or Oakland, that's definitely possible. But again, the infrastructure to do that is challenging. We would need to either build upon the current stadium or find a new stadium venue that can hold 15,000 fans. Again, I think a lot of USL clubs could make that push. I think Sacramento's definitely one. I think Oakland's got the market for that for sure. And that 15,000 person stadium number is a little intimidating for USL clubs. Right now, the only club that can truly meet that is Louisville City. Their stadium holds over 15,000 people. They get great attendance for a lot of games. They are really an MLS quality club, I believe, in the USL Championship. And I don't think they'd have any trouble making this jump up to Division I. But that's really only one team. I've mentioned other teams I think that could make that jump, but it would have to come at a cost of a lot of investors coming in, a lot of changing coming in very quickly. And I think the requirement that's going to be the hardest to meet is the requirement that states there needs to be 12 teams entering into this league on year 1. And by year 3 of operation, there needs to be 14 teams. I think that's going to be very, very tough because I think in 3-4 years, maybe you could get a solid 5 or 7 teams from the USL Championship to meet these requirements of 15,000 person stadium, all the Division I requirements. I think you could do it, but I think it's going to be a stretch to get to 12 and a big stretch to get to 14 teams. And if the USL is really stretching and biting off more they can chew to fill these last 7 spots of the league, I think that's where the problems are going to occur. The worst possible thing is if you have the bottom 5 teams or so playing in this 15,000 person stadium or more, but only averaging 2, 3, 4,000 fans per game. That's a really, really bad look for a first division league. And we've seen a lot of USL clubs already do that. They go from these small, intimate stadiums packed with fans, really good environment. They bite off more they can chew, or they're forced out of that stadium to a different stadium and they're playing in a 20,000 person stadium that's empty. Nobody wants an empty stadium. It's not a good look. It's not good for the fans. It's not good for the players. It's not good for the coaching staff. It's not good for the organizations. It's not good for the league. And if I were the MLS and I was seeing this league with 4 or 5 really, really solid top tier USL Division 1 teams and 8 teams kind of struggling by in this league, if I were the MLS, I would just kind of pick off the top teams from the USL Division 1 and give them an expansion bid into the MLS, which they're already doing with the USL Championship. They're already kind of picking off the best markets and allowing them to enter into the MLS. If they keep on picking off the best ones in this Division 1 league, then we just have to keep on stretching to fill, and it's just going to deteriorate the quality of this league. And my biggest fear is that this is just going to turn into history repeating itself for a third time. The turnover of clubs in the USL League One and USL Championship is already very, very high. A lot of the focus is on all these new teams that keep on popping up, which is great. But every year there are teams that are folding and leaving the USLC and USL 1. Just to rattle them off: Wilmington Hammerheads, Rochester Rhinos, Atlanta Silverbacks, Fort Lauderdale Strikers, Austin Bold, San Diego Loyal, St. Louis FC, Fresno FC, Ottawa Fury, Reno 1868 FC, Harrisburg City Islanders, Memphis 901 FC, RGV, Penn FC, and Lansing Ignite, and OKC Energy, even though they've talked about coming back. And selfishly, I love when more teams keep popping up, especially higher tier teams with more investors and more money. That's good for players, but every time one of these teams fold, that just means more jobs lost. As a player, instead of trying to expand more, I would love to focus on the core group of teams that we already have and focus on building the infrastructure of every single club and stabilizing it for decades to come. I mean, there's big infrastructure problems that we already have. I mean, every USL team, I would love to see them have their own soccer-specific stadium that they can call theirs. There's some great movement already in this direction, with Lexington building a beautiful stadium, Rhode Island building a beautiful new stadium, Detroit talking about building a beautiful new stadium. All this talk and movement towards this, which is great, but I would really like that to be the emphasis instead of growing outwards. I would love the focus to be on the training facilities and the game field and the experience as a player, all of those standards to be brought up to a good equalizing level throughout the league, and focusing on bringing that up year after year instead of just expanding. But I can see why they wouldn't do that, because the money is made from selling franchise rights to new teams. The more teams that come to this league, the more this league grows, the more money the USL makes. And again, that's how the business operates. I get that. I understand that. But I think for the long-term longevity of the league, the infrastructure has to be really, really sound, and we can't have teams folding every single year. To be honest, the first thought that came into my head when I heard about the USL Division 1 was that this is going to be NASL 3.0 and it's going to fold again, just like the NASL folded twice already. And I hope it doesn't. I really, really hope it doesn't. But that was the first thought that popped in my head. The first iteration of the NASL came around 1968. And for 15 years, they really tried to bring in big name players into the league, like Pele and Franz Beckenbauer, to really bring excitement into America about soccer. And it did really well until it didn't. The league expanded pretty rapidly, and all of a sudden there were a lot of teams that couldn't sustain financially being in the league year after year. And eventually the league folded. Then the second iteration of the NASL came, and it tried to compete with the MLS this time. The MLS was already a bit more established. They already had the TV deals. They already had a lot of the infrastructure ready. And the NASL really tried to, again, kind of bite off more they can chew and compete with the MLS. They pumped in a ton of money. They brought in a lot of investors. They paid players a lot of money to be in this league because they wanted to be the first division league in America. There were a lot of signs that the NASL was not financially doing too well, and a lot of NASL teams left the NASL to come to the USL or to the MLS, and eventually the NASL folded in 2017. So for me, again, it feels a little similar to the NASL story of the soccer wars between MLS and NASL, and I don't want that to happen to Division 1 with USL. I really want it to succeed. I want the USL as a whole to succeed. I've played in this league practically my entire career, and I have nothing but love for the USL. I do think that it sounds ambitious, and I'm worried that if we expand too fast without the right infrastructure underneath, the whole thing could collapse. And that is the last thing that we need in US soccer. We need teams and organizations and clubs and leagues to be around for decades and decades and decades. That's really what I believe America needs in the long term. So anyway, that's just me rambling about this topic. I hope you guys got something from this. If not, no problem. If you agree, disagree, whatever, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I love to read them. I love to discuss this. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I really hope the USL can turn this into something really positive.